Isaiah 40. Isaiah 40, looking at verses 12 to 31. I don't know if this thing is working yet. Let me see if I can turn it on. Thought it turned on. I'll just use a keypad if not. That's cool, I can use a keypad. All right. When you were a kid, did you ever use this on the screen? What is that? What does she use? How old is she? Kobe. A magnifying glass. Right? I think everybody, yeah, look what? Cece has one. Man, he knew, he was in sync. He knew this would be the opening illustration, and he has a magnifying glass. Way to be prepared, Cece, right? Some of us still use that now. Some of us definitely used them when we were a kid. And maybe you kind of held it over like a tiny ant or a bug or something like that, and all of a sudden, it looked like a monster, right? Depending on how strong your magnifying glass was. Something that was like small and harmless now seemed massive and threatening. If you ever saw like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids or something like that, you have those little people and the Oreo looks gigantic and all these bugs that were small or something like that. Like, man, I would not want to live in that world. But it wasn't really the size of the ant that changed, did it? Right? It was the lens in which you were looking through. And the same thing happens to our hearts. All of us know that God is a big God. Our God is so big, so strong, and so mighty, right? We've heard it all our lives. We sung about it. But when we face a financial struggle, a broken relationship, loneliness, a frightening diagnosis, an uncertain future, it is as if we pull out a magnifying glass. Instead of putting God in it, we put our problems under it, and they suddenly look huge, too big, too powerful, too overwhelming. Meanwhile, we glance at God without much thought, almost as if he's small, distant, or helpless. Isaiah 40 in our text this morning causes us to really swap those lenses. Not to pretend like our problems are not real, they're real, but to finally see reality as it truly is. To take the magnifying glass off our problems, our fears, and fix our eyes on the greatness of God. And when we do that, something powerful happens, we see. Our problems don't vanish, but they lose their power to control us, to crush us. Our souls end up, from being busy and anxious, they start finding rest because they are anchored not in the size of the storm, but in the majesty of the one who reigns over it. And today, this morning, church, God invites us to lift up our eyes, or as the text says, behold. And when you do, you ain't going to find this kind of small, exhausted God, but an everlasting sovereign creator who does not grow faint, who does not grow weary, and he gives strength and stability to his weary people. The fact is, although we know of God, many of us end up having a small view of who God is. On the flip side, we have an exaggerated view of who we are and the problems we face. Kevin DeYoung said this in opening up, I don't know if it was opening up a sermon, but in a sermon, he said, whatever you think about God this morning, you think too little of him. At the same token, you think too highly of yourself. Many of us have some understanding about God this morning. Many of us know the Sunday school facts about God, even know him personally. But we do not know him and behold him for who he is, because if we did, it would be a totally different reaction in how we live our lives day to day, especially in times of crisis. And our main text this morning unpacks a grand and robust revealing of God's character and works. But this text is also designed to incite to invite comfort and trust in God despite challenging circumstances. Maybe a couple of years ago, I had retreated the first part of this text. I don't know how much context you remember, but this was written for the exiled people of Israel who would be scattered around in a foreign country, ruled by pagan rulers, hundreds miles away from their promised land, split up from a lot of family. Many were discouraged. Many doubted God's control or power because of being driven out of their land. Many people thought, as verse 27 indicates, that their trials and hurt and suffering was hidden from him. Maybe God did not understand or gave up on them. Maybe he was not really in loving control over their lives. The text this morning is one of the greatest texts in Scripture in expounding on the greatness and sovereignty of our Lord. The antidote, the fix to a broken and exiled people was not a self-help speech. It was not a pick yourself up by your bootstraps kind of TED talk. God knew what they really needed is what we also need this morning, and that is a greater dosage, a greater view of who he is. The text wants its readers to behold the greatness of your God. Behold your God is what we are called to do here in these verses, and that is expounded on in our text. Yes, the text gets us to be in awe of God's strength and power and sovereignty, but God had his prophet remind the people of the greatness in this way, not just for a response of awe and wonder, although that should happen, but to instill trust and comfort in himself at this time. Main thing we see in our text is that God's eternal greatness brings great comfort to those who behold and wait on him. Finding comfort in the greatness of God. If God's people can radically change their view of God, it will radically impact their spirit and behavior. The more we personally know and embrace God, the better our mindset, our confidence, and our behavior is. Many of the problems many of God's people face are often due to a low view of God and an exaggerated view of self and their problems. And that was the case of Israel. God's eternal greatness brings great comfort to those who behold and wait on him. And the first main point we see is that we must take comfort in God because of his incomparable greatness. God gets his people to focus on his greatness with a series of easily answered questions. It actually reminds me of where we are in Job here. God is asking all these questions in our Sunday school series that Brian was doing a good job leading. But the questions here are designed to make us see how great God is and how small we are and our problems are. Although the questions shed light on God's magnitude and vastness, all the questions can be answered simply. They're easy, even though what they reveal is complex. The answers are simple. We see God's greatness in a myriad of ways in this text. And we're going to go through this text somewhat unorthodox, in which I'm going to be looking at different verses scattered throughout the text, but we're still going to be progressing along and moving through. First, we see his incomparable greatness as creator. Middle of verse 28 says, he is the creator of the ends of the earth. God spoke this world and universe into existence in all its beauty and magnitude. And all that magnitude and all its beauty is really minuscule compared to God, but it also reflects his glory. Look at that second part of verse 22 here. It says, who stretches out the heavens like a curtain and spreads them like a tent to dwell in. Also look at verse 12. Who has measured the waters in the hollow of his hand, and marked off the heavens with a span, and enclosed the dust of the earth in a measure, and weighed the mountains in scales, and his hills in the balance? God uses human imagery and illustrations not to reduce him to our level, but to really enhance and clarify our understanding of how great he is. Look at the first question, though. Verse 12 says, who has measured the waters in the hollow of his hand? All the oceans, seas, lakes in this world can fit in the hollow of God's hand. About 71% of the earth's surface is water covered. The Challenger Deep in the Mariana Trench is the deepest known point in the Earth's oceans. The Challenger Deep is about 36,070 feet below sea level. If Mount Everest, the highest mountain on Earth, were placed at its location, it would be covered by over a mile of water. All that water is smaller than a vapor mist in God's hand. The next part of this statement is even more incredible. Marked off the heavens by a span, or enclosed or calculated the dust of the earth in a measure. Just think about how much sand and dust there is on earth. Not only does God know how many dust particles there are, it fits in like a small measuring cup, if you will. Just think about how many grains of sand there are in the world. Many of you guys have been to beaches, right? You ever picked up a handful of sand at a beach? It would just rack your brain trying to count just how many grains there are in your handful. Can you imagine just, counting each one? My kids, both Kobe and I think Ava as well, had some counting project, and especially Kobe and I remember theirs. But when learning to count, one of the first major achievements is learning how to count to 100. And they all had some type of count to 100 project. And we would have to buy maybe a box of cereal or cheap pasta or something like that. And they were supposed to count to 100 and put all the pieces in the baggie for an assignment. Now the parents were supposed to check their work. And I would get tired, mess up, counting 100, have to recount, right? I mean, I'm like, is there an app that I can just download and, take a pick and it kind of automatically calculates? I'm sure there is probably, right? But let alone counting grains of sand. They say if you assume a grain of sand has an average size and you calculate how many grains are in a teaspoon and then multiply by all the beaches and deserts in the world, the earth has roughly, and I'm speaking very roughly here, 7 quintillion, 500 quadrillion grains. And that fits into God's teaspoon, if you will. He knows the exact number. Now check this out. He says that he marked off the heavens. What are the heavens? The space, the galaxies, right? With the span. The span is like the distance between your pinky and your thumb. A light year is a unit of measure that they measure to measure distance in space. Just one light year, scientists say, is 6 trillion miles. All right? The furthest known galaxy is about 13.3 billion light years away. Now remember, one light year is 6 trillion miles. I looked that up. It's a long number that I'm not going to read, all right? Or even try to say, all right? We can't even comprehend the size and vastness of the creation our God has made. Space stretches much farther than we know, and all the galaxies are as if they fit between God's thumb and pinky finger. Look at verse 26 quickly. Lift up your eyes on high and see who created these. He who brings out the host by number, calling them all by name, by the greatness of his might, and because he is strong in power, not one is missing. Host here is talking about the stars of heaven. Not only does all of space fit in his palm, he knows all the stars by name. Now remember that stat I gave you about the sand on the earth. 7 quintillion, 500 quadrillion grains. There are more stars in heaven than there are sands on the seashore. There are 10 times more stars in the night sky with what you can see through telescopes than grains of sand in the world's deserts and beaches, scientists say. 100 billion galaxies, and the Lord calls all the stars out by name. God calls all the stars out by name. I can't even remember somebody's name that I've seen like 15 times. Isn't the God we serve majestic and awesome? Our head hurts thinking about how many grains of sand on a beach and stars in the sky. If we can't comprehend his creation, how much greater and grander must our Creator be? If we get lost thinking about his creation. He spoke, and this whole world and galaxies came into existence with a word. From nothing, without breaking a sweat, without an ounce of strain, he spoke, and this creation came into existence. As the song says, he speaks and 100 billion galaxies are born. That is the eternal God that you serve this morning. You know what? The text makes it clear that he didn't need anybody's help with this either. We see his greatness also in his infinite wisdom. Look at verses 13 and 14 with me. Who has measured the Spirit of the Lord? Or what man has shown him counsel? Whom did he consult, and who made him understand? Who taught him the path of justice, and taught him knowledge, and showed him the way of understanding? God is not taught anything. He is the teacher. All knowledge comes from him. Everything we know about science and physics and math is his truth. Anything social science observes that is true is God's truth. All truth is God's truth, as we often say. The laws of gravity and thermodynamics, all math equations were discovered by man and not man-made because they come from an all-knowing God. God did not need to look at YouTube videos to, how am I going to create this, right? Like I do just to put a door handle on, then I end up doing it backwards, right? I have to restart it. All right, sorry, thinking about reliving that, right? God did not need a YouTube video to create stars or make the ocean stops where they do. He did not hire any consulting firm for anything that was made. He did not consult with angels to get their ideas on the best layout for galaxies. Byron's talking about the different constellations, Pleiades. I don't think I said it right? He didn't say, hey, what do you think? Should I put this here or here? I don't know, man. I'm struggling with this, right? You can't tell God nothing, as they say, right? Double negative, but you know what it means. You can't tell God nothing, right? You know, we get annoyed with teenagers and kids or people in general when they act like they know everything and you can't tell them nothing, and everything you say to them is, I know, or disagreeing with you or dismissing what you got to say. And we say, man, you can't tell that boy nothing, right? Well, it's a fact that no man, no matter how smart they are, can tell God anything. God alone, according to this text, knows what true justice looks like. Even the best earthly governments and laws are so finite and corrupt compared to the law of Christ when he rules and reigns. The ideals, even in our Constitution and Declaration of Independence, as great as they are, they can't hold water to God's justice. Anything good that we do and create is because we're made in his image. But even still, because we're fallen, that will be imperfect. Look at the last phrase of verse 28. Says, his understanding is unsearchable. Anybody use Chat GPT or some type of AI tool like Copilot or something like that here? Anybody use that? Have used it? Anybody use it regularly? It's amazing what these artificial intelligent tools can do. Like, just amazing how quickly they synthesize data and spit out coherent results. Just reading here, and I didn't bring the sheet here, just some of the stuff that the AI can do, but data processing and analysis. So financial analysis, AI algorithms can analyze market trends and financial data to make investment decisions faster and more accurately than humans. I don't know, Pastor Wade, using AI for your, you're just using Wade eye, right? For example, BlackRock's Aladdin system processes vast amount of data to provide risk management and investment analysis. It can do healthcare research, medical diagnosis, pathology. AI systems can analyze biopsy samples to identify cancerous cells. Path AI's technology improves the accuracy of diagnosing and classifying diseases. AI can help with language translation for real-time language translation that includes colloquialisms and things of that nature. Customer service helps with predictive maintenance, fraud detection, personalized recommendation, and being like a stalker to you, so Netflix or these brands can kind of like know exactly what you want. This is scary, but autonomous vehicles. You see those Teslas just driving around by itself, and they have these navigation systems. Tesla's autopilot uses AI to detect and respond to obstacles, pedestrians, and other vehicles. Like I said, financial trading, content generation. I use it at work to help create content, to edit stuff, and it spits out stuff so quickly with just a few prompts. Image creation, video. You've seen those deep fake videos where it will take someone and use their voice, and you think they said it, right? It's craziness, right? Speech recognition, cybersecurity, supply chain optimization, climate modeling, human resources, education and tutoring. People are using it for. I help with, mine's doing some fifth grade stuff that sometimes I get, are you smarter than a fifth grader? Not all the time. I have to use AI to help me. Okay, that's what it's going. And it helps me with that. Robotic surgery. Now, that's kind of scary, but robotic surgery, it's used in that. Agricultural management, entertainment, space exploration. AI systems control robots on other planets, enabling autonomous exploration. NASA's Curiosity rover over Mars uses AI to navigate and conduct scientific experiments. AI, depending on how sophisticated a tool, can go through massive amount of data all over very quickly and spit out results. Very quick calculation. But if you put the vastness of our God in the most sophisticated AI tool, it will break. It will explode. All right? The AI, any Google search engine, no matter how sophisticated, cannot contain our God. His wisdom is unsearchable. So vast. God is the one who created, and we created what we know to as the phenomena of time, right? Maybe you thought growing up, if God is eternal, then it must have been a really long time before he created the earth. Well, God created the phenomena we know as time, and our finite minds can only think in terms of it. There are no ends to God's understanding. Take all the knowledge in the world and the smartest minds who ever lived, created or imaginary, put them together, and guess what? They are dumber than sheep compared to God. Aren't you glad that you serve a God that is beyond your comprehension? That, for some people, makes them turn away from God. For some reason, they want a God that they can fit in their finite, fallen, logical box. No, I'm glad that if I had all the knowledge of everyone that has ever lived, I still would not be able to scratch the surface in understanding the immensity of my God. Church, that is a God that is worth serving, worshiping, praising, and adoring. We see his greatness in his creation and wisdom, but we also see his greatness in his sovereignty and power over the nations. Look at verses 15 through 17 with me. Behold, the nations are like a drop from a bucket and are counted as dust of the scales, on the scales. Behold, he takes up the coastlands like fine dust. Lebanon would not suffice for fuel, nor its beasts enough for a burnt offering. All the nations are as nothing before him. They are accounted by him as less than nothing and emptiness. Especially having seen how massive his creation is and how it fits in the palm of his hand, how much smaller is mankind compared to God? How weak and minuscule are even the mightiest nations that ever lived compared to God? Well, God says all the nations of the world are like a drop of water, like little dust particles on scales. All the coasts of the whole earth are like fine dust to God. Look at verse 16. Lebanon would not suffice for fuel, nor its beasts enough for a burnt offering. Anybody remember what Lebanon was known for as far as its surrounding areas and agriculture? Anybody know? Yes, massive cedar trees. Its kings of the earth would go to Lebanon to benefit from its awesome cedar trees. And the prophet Isaiah is saying that you can take all those great cedar trees and the forest of Lebanon and light it on fire, and it wouldn't be enough. You can, while you're at it, take all the animals and throw them into a fire for a sacrifice, and it wouldn't be close to a sufficient sacrifice for our great God. Only God was a sufficient sacrifice for God, and that is why he sent Jesus to die for our sins. All the forests of the world, if it were burned, would be smaller than a campfire and couldn't even warm him. Verse 17 makes it expressly clear that all nations, no matter how great, that do not know God are worthless and less than nothing in emptiness before God. I mean, how can something be less than nothing? Well, I mean, you compare it to God. Compared to God, mankind with all its might is weaker and less than an empty mop bucket. You see, Israel was fearful of Assyria and then Babylon and then Persia. They were then fearful of the nations and pagans around their nation when they came back from captivity because it's kind of unstable. When they would read this text, they would be encouraged that those nations, no matter how powerful they may seem, in their eyes were like little drops of water and dust particles, less than nothing compared to Yahweh. Brothers and sisters, that is the God that we serve this morning. Look down at verse 21 with me. Do you not know? Do you not hear? Has it not been told from the beginning? Have you not understood from the foundations of the earth? It is he who sits above the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers, who stretches out the nations like a curtain and spreads them like a tent to dwell in, who brings princes to nothing and makes rulers of the earth as emptiness. Scarcely are they planted, scarcely are they sown, scarcely has their stem taken root in the earth. When he blows on them, they wither, and tempest carries them off like stubble. God in verse 21 is basically like, where have you been, people of Israel? Did you grow up in a cave? Did you not get out much? Were you homeschooled? Just kidding. Did you read about this in my law? What? Did you not know? Did anybody ever tell you that the same God that spoke this world into existence sits a throne above the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers? This verse is saying God is in control and sovereign over the world. Circle of the earth here is most likely referring to the spherical form of the earth in which God sits above enthroned, symbolically. Sorry to y'all, these flat earthers out there. From his sovereign position in heaven, God watches over his created universe. God is ultimately high and lifted up. He's the ultimate sovereign, sitting way above his creation, in control over every minute detail. All powerful nations are like insects compared to our enthroned divine ruler. He stretches out the galaxies like a curtain and spreads them like a tent to live in. Look at verses 23 and 24 again with me. Who brings princes to nothing and makes rulers of the earth as emptiness. Scarcely are they planted, scarcely are they sown, scarcely has their stem taken root in the earth. When he blows on them, they wither, and the tempest carries them off like stubble. Our holy, mighty, powerful God brings the mighty rulers of this world to nothing. They look strong and rooted and planted one day, and just like that, as if God is blowing out a candle, whole kingdoms and powerful kings are uprooted and blown away like chaff. I mean, to Israel, Assyria looked unstoppable. Then they fell. Then here comes mighty Babylon, and they fell. Then here comes the empire of Persia, then they fell. And then comes the great conqueror, Alexander the Great, and his empire fell as fast as he can build it and tore apart. Then the mighty Rome with all its powerful Caesars and army. And it seemed like it would last forever. Anybody know Is there any Roman Empire today? No. God allowed a great, powerful, seemingly long-lasting empire to crumble. Daniel knew about how in control God was over the nations. In Daniel 2:21, he says he changes times and seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. There is no kingdom that is in place that God did not allow for a period of time, and when he is done with them or their wickedness has filled its cup, God simply blows, and that mighty empire, king crumbles. Listen, God is in control, not like some king or dictator or president. Listen, I think it's great that we live in a country where we have a voice to impact our government in a way that hopefully benefits us. You should be involved in voting, whether it be from your local representatives like sheriff or mayor to your presidential elections. God's sovereignty is not an excuse to not be engaged in civic responsibility that I believe he wants us to steward well. That being said, many of us at times can have our hope and trust too tightly wound into what party has control and what president is in office. From President Lincoln to Bush to Obama to Trump to Biden to Trump again, it does not matter. God is on the real throne. God is the one running the show, and they can easily be reduced to nothing. If your confidence and anchor, no matter what the president of our nation is in power, should always be in God enthroned above. God is in control. Even the most wicked king or president or dictators is less than a pawn to God. Church, we must stop letting American and global politics affect your stability and peace. Do you not know who's in control this morning? Did nobody ever tell you that God, the God in which you serve, brothers, is in control? God is eternal and all-wise and infinitely mighty. Did anybody ever tell you that you are not of this world, but you serve an eternal and all-wise and mighty God? Doesn't everybody know this? Where if you don't know, as they say, you better ask somebody. God runs things no matter what's going on the national or global stage. Terrorists or no terrorists, good economy or bad economy, God is in control. And he can and will topple and raise up governments and care for his people just the same, all right, no matter what's going on. Let us be involved politically, but always know who's running the show and who our leader is, no matter who's elected. But we also see, and I know this is kind of redundant of the main point, but we see his greatness and his incomparability. God makes it vividly and expressly clear that he is beyond comparison. Go back to verse 18 with me. To whom will you liken God, or what likeness compare with him? An idol? A craftsman casts it, and a goldsmith overlays it with gold and casts it for silver change. He is too impoverished or poor for an offering, chooses wood that will not rot. He seeks a skillful craftsman to set it up an idol that will not move. God is God all by himself. Amen? There is no comparison. The prophet sarcastically says, hey, who are you going to compare Yahweh? An idol? First of all, a man who God created has to make an idol with gold and silver that God created. And if you're poor, you use wood and you hire a craftsman to make an idol so it won't move and fall over. God created man, has given him the skill and resources, if they choose to create idols, and then they try to compare it to God. Not only is that blasphemous, it's laughable. We compare athletes like LeBron, Kobe, Michael. We compare presidents and bosses. We compare, food like the best chicken wings. Emmanuel's not Little Caesars. But, because those are earthly things, food, presidents, athletes are finite. One can eventually make the argument that some food is better than others, and one president is better than others, and one player is better. Even Chuck Norris has some type of human match somewhere. You can't take anything on this earth that was ever made or has been made. You can't take any king, any creation, and you can put it all together And it's utter blasphemy to say it's even close to God. Take every superpower. Take all the mythical creatures, right? Take all the Marvel superheroes and villains you think of and pick the biggest, baddest hero or power, imaginary or real, and you measure them up to God, and it's not even a match. God makes the Avengers, Superman, and all the great superpowers of the earth look like weaker than Teletubbies and my kids' stuffed animals. They all look weak compared to God. Verse 25, after Isaiah makes clear that God is infinitely above all the powerful nations, it says, to whom then will you compare me? That I should be like him, says the Holy One. Our God is awesome and beyond comparison and comprehension. You know, there's many poems that people write, and it exaggerates the person or object in which it is talking. The words in which they use, are designed to prove a point, but they're obviously using these high and lofty language to describe the person. Maybe it's about love or some nature experience, and they use these exaggerated terms. One thing about our current president is that part of the way he communicates is in superlatives, right? Everything is the biggest, the best. I know the best words, the best negotiator. I'm the best at helping people. You can actually look up an article of quotes of everything he claims to be the best at, or if it's bad, the least bad at, right? Professional athletes do this as well. I know one professional athlete, Anthony Edwards, talking about he's the best at anything with the ball. Ping pong, shooting a ball in a trash can, whatever it is, I'm the best. Everything is said to the extreme. And if we're honest, even though they may think so, they are exaggerating to say the least. They're overstating how great they are. You know what we can't overstate? We can't overstate or exaggerate our God. He is beyond comprehension. You can take the most loftiest of terms, right, of every language that is ever spoken, and you can use ChatGPT to help you, and it will not do justice in describing how great your God is this morning. That should bring us great comfort that we serve a God like this, that he is our king and our shepherd. You know, we read all these grand realities about our God, and yes, they should make us worship him and humble awe, but Isaiah was told to write this also to comfort people. You say, how else does the greatness of God comfort us besides the fact that he is in control? Well, next main point we see, we must take comfort in our great God because he gives his divine strength to us. There are three important things we must do that are implied or explicitly stated in this text to benefit from God's divine strength on our behalf. The first, as we have been looking at in the past verses, we must behold and know our God. That's the main one. Behold and know our great God. Look at verse 26. Lift up your eyes on high and see who created these. Basically saying, hey, Ezra, look up at the sky. Remember who created these stars. He knows all of them by name, and not one of them is hidden from him. They are all held by his power with ease. Look at verse 28. Have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not faint or grow weary. Did y'all not know? Where have y'all been? Who have you been hanging around that no one ever told you this? You don't have my greatness is not hiding behind a paywall article. Have you checked my resume? Right? Your God is an everlasting God. He was not created. He always is and will forever be forever. He is the creator of everything you see. You would think that this God who is in control of all the nations, who upholds all the stars by the word of his power, you would think that would cause him to be tired or break a sweat. Church, God does not get tired. God does not need sleep or caffeine to stay alert. He does not need 5-hour energies and Celsius energy drinks like your pastor to get through the week. You can, not that that's good, but you can at any time come to God, and he always fully is ready to help you. It's not like he answers a bunch of prayer requests, and then he does this great act of power, and then he has to sit on a charger for a while and reboot. Hold on, I'm rebooting, right? I need to sit for a second. My wife and I are always like, oh man, I need to sit for a second, and then I get to that, right? Because we've been working all day. Our God does not get tired at all, right? He's always supremely alert. His understanding is unsearchable. I know we hit it early, but he makes search engines, and the most sophisticated AI would crack if they tried to contain God. If you're going to benefit from the strength and wisdom of God, you must know who your God is. You must spend time beholding and meditating on the greatness of your God. Do you take time? Let me ask you, do you take time to behold your God? Do you know that he is your God and loves you and is concerned and in control about your trials and pains? If God knows all the stars by name and not one is missing, if his understanding is infinite, if there's no being imaginary or created that you can compare to God, do you think he would forget about someone he sent his son to die for? Do you? If he knows a zillion stars by name, he knows exactly all about you and all your pain and your trial and your situation. He has not forgotten you. Why are we like the people of Israel in verse 27 when it says, why do you say, O Jacob, and speak, O Israel, my hay is hidden from the Lord, and my right is disregarded by my God? We might not say it out loud, but we may think and act like that. God does not really understand or care about my financial situation. Does he really know how much pain I'm in? Does he know how exhausted I've been? What my family is struggling with? Does he see this? Does he know all the responsibilities I have on my plate, and it seems like there's no end in sight? Does God even know what's going on? Does he care? Does he know about this person and situation that's causing me so much suffering? You see, the reason we doubt God knows or cares, at least in how we act, is not that we don't know how great God is intellectually or factually. We know God is all-knowing. We know he's omnipotent. We know he's omnipresent. We know he's omniscient. We know that he can and has done all these miracles throughout the Bible and for other people. We just don't believe he can do it for us in our situation. Let me say that again. We know that God has done it and has done it for other people, but when it comes to our situation that we're in, we don't believe God can do it for me. The same God that when Israel was surrounded and split the Red Sea is your God. The same God who's stopped the mouths of lions is your God. Killed Goliath, protected the 3 Hebrew boys from fiery furnace, dropped manna from heaven, made water come from a rock to hydrate his people, made the blind see, healed a withered hand, calmed storms, walked on water, made lepers clean, made the mute talk, made the deaf hear, made the dead come alive, and then he died, and 3 days later he rose again. Guess what, brothers and sisters? That is your God this morning. And you must realize and know that this powerful God of the Bible is not a past tense God. He's not just a future tense God, but he's a right now God. All the power and majesty that you see in this text is from a God that loves you and is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Do you know who you belong to this morning? Do you know that Christ spared not his own son to freely give you all things? Do you not know that you are a child of the King? That you are a special possession to God? You don't think this great and awesome God understands or is in control of the lives of his image bearers, especially those who are called by his name? Nonsense. Let us stop thinking or ever feeling like this God who loves us, who died for us, and is all-powerful, is not concerned or is in control of the difficulties we face. He is. Behold your God. But also, implicitly implied here, we must recognize that we are weak. Look at verse 29. We're almost done. He gives power to the faint, and to him who has no might, he increases strength. Isn't that encouraging? Our great God gives us divine might and power to those that are weak. And to those who have no strength, he increases it. Don't try to fake it till you make it. It's okay and necessary to admit that you are weak and worn and weary. Anybody ever feel exhausted? Anybody ever feel weak? Anybody ever feel powerless? Anybody ever feel like there's no end to my pain? Some of y'all I know sick and tired of being sick and tired, as they say. It's okay to admit to each other and definitely to God that you are stressed and worn out, that you can't make it, that you need him. When we recognize our need for his power and strength, that is when he's able to recharge and power us with his divine might. This is not just some Gatorade or some watered down gasoline. This is that premium fuel, divine fuel that comes from the oil reserves that never runs out. Do you admit your weakness to God and run to him from power and strength? If you do, you would be recharged. Or do you hopelessly get through your pain and difficult schedule with your own strength? Not only do we need to admit our weakness, but we must confidently hope and wait on God. Look at verses 30 and 31. Even you shall faint and be weary, and young men shall fall exhausted. But they who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. As the young kids say, that he was cooking when he wrote that, right? That always just gets me excited. Listen, even the strongest and youngest among us get tired. Back in the day, I could play ball all day, afternoon and evening. I would all week and be ready to do it again. Now I play once every now and then. One game, I'm exhausted. I hate when I have to guard somebody who would just not stop running, right? I'm like, bro, slow down, right? Let me guard this guy who has a belly like me that's not moving around that much, right? Even young people and strong people will break down eventually, though. And I love this transition word in the Bible. But what? But those who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. The word renew has the idea of exchange. So God is not just giving you something of equal or lesser value, like at a restaurant or something. God is exchanging his strength with yours. You give him your weakness and fragility, he will give you his might. You give him your sin, and he will give you his righteousness. That is amazing that our great, powerful God gives us his power, his strength for those who wait on him. What does it mean to wait? Now, I'm not talking about impatient waiting like we're familiar with. We're very familiar with impatient waiting, right? Waiting in line at the DMV just for them to tell you that you need some blood sample or declaration of independence in order to get the document, right? Gets on my nerves, right? I'm not talking about that. Or waiting in line at McDonald's forever just for them to mess up your order. We're good at impatient waiting. You want to take experience of it, be in a rush and take Woodruff Road, and you experience that, right? No, this is talking about a patient, confident hope in God in the midst of your circumstance. This is calm, peace, stable person who's trusting God and hoping in God in the midst of a crazy schedule, his pain, his or her financial difficulty. That wait invites the Lord's strength. It's a trusting, hopeful wait. When we behold our God and admit our weakness and wait upon the Lord, he will dump his power and might on us. Look at the last part of verse 31. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Now, I'm not telling you that you trust God and naming and claiming God is going to bless you with this house or this vehicle or this money. That's not what. Of course, that's not what they're saying here. I'm not saying that confidently hoping your God means your problems will go away in this lifetime. In fact, old problems will be replaced with new ones. What God is saying here, that in the midst of your busyness and exhaustion, in the midst of your pain, in the midst of your trial, your financial problems, your relationship struggle, God will impart his strength and power so you can be victorious during your trial, even though it's around you. Hoping and waiting on God means that in the midst of your trial, you are high on the grace of God and you are charged with the power of God. That is why there are some people who suffer way more than any of us do, but their demeanor and spirit, you couldn't tell. It's not because their problems aren't that bad. It's because they know how to get a hold and behold and wait on God. Waiting on the Lord also means that one day there is coming a day when these problems and these pains will be eradicated, right? We're not going to have to balance these problems with waiting on the Lord in the midst of problems. That's going to be done one day, right? It's going to be a day when all justice and righteousness and peace would be just part of the whole earth perfectly, and all the pain will be gone. So how about it, church? Do you need to drastically ramp up your view of God this morning? Are you comforted and encouraged this morning that a powerful, almighty creator God is your God, and he will freely give you his power if you wait and behold on him? Again, God's eternal greatness brings great comfort to those who behold and wait on him.